Nathan Bunton, Julian Galvez, Matthew Ziegler, Sean Armstrong, Peyton Guillory, Daniel Gurovich, Misha Romo, Ben Venters, McKinley Michelle, Matthew Petros, Colby Prince, Garrett Lawless, Saran Alexander, Tristan Mai, and Boone Washburn. And a midshipmen are coached by our head coach, Kip Simons, and Craig Holt, Ryan Terrell, and J.M. Michelle. That's the midshipmen of Navy. Ladies and gentlemen, I ask you at this time to please rise as we honor America with the singing of our national anthem, performed by Mrs. Pam Baker, mother of First Lieutenant Nehemiah Baker, USNA Gymnast, class of 2022.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets' red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave? Go Navy!
Thank you, Miss Baker. Captains to the center of the floor, please, to meet with our leader of our judges, Mike Eberly. Captains to the front of the floor. So teams, let's report to our first event. It'll be the floor exercise. In our competition today, we will rotate between both teams on each apparatus. 4 competitors for each apparatus, totaling the team scores.
All right. Hello and welcome, gym fans, to Halsey Field House, where the Navy midshipmen are set to compete against the Army Black Knights in what we all know and love as the Star Meet. My name is Christian Marsh, and I'm here with my co-host, Brandon Briones. How you doing, Brandon?
I'm doing great, Christian. I'm happy to be here commentating this Star Meet today. Nothing better than a rivalry meet between two highly contested teams. It's going to be an exciting one.
No, for sure. So, to kick us off, the Navy midshipmen are coached by Kip Simons, with their assistant coaches Craig Holt and Ryan Terrell. So far this season, Army is averaging a 306.5 with a high of a 309.3. Although it is worth noting, Navy has had more opportunities to compete so far. So while Army has competed twice, Navy has 3 times, and that will affect their averages accordingly.
And for the Army Black Knights, they are led by head coach J.D. Reeve and assistant coaches Carmine Giglio and Jake Bonnet. So far this season, their averages a 302.125 and a high of 306.65. Although, as Christian mentioned, there's room to improve this competition. We'll see if they can top it.
It looks like our first athlete is cooking his way through this first routine. Leadoff is always an important position in the lineup. Got to set the momentum, and that is no more imperative than first routine on the first event. Very nice stick on that connection tumble. And ready for the balance element. He's one of the athletes who elected to keep it after the Federal Gymnastics Governing Board made it optional whether or not you had to do one. And he finished up the set very well.
Yep, good leadoff routine from Daniel Gurevich from Navy. This is going to be a head-to-head back and forth format, so both teams will start on floor and they'll go back and forth swapping teams, and then they will move on to the next event after each team has done 4 routines. So next up for Army is going to be Jaden Blank. Oh yeah, it's always it's good to see, the comparison between the 2 teams directly.
Ladies and gentlemen, Jaden Blank. Next up for Navy, Ben Thurmala. Ladies and gentlemen, Jacob Brenner.
Come on, baby. Come on, let's go.
Next up for Navy, Danilo Viciana. Ladies and gentlemen, Danilo Viciana.
Hey, come on now, Max. Let's go. Come on now, Max. Let's go, finish, baby. Come on. Come on, Max. Let's get it. Come on now. You got this one. Let's go. Let's go now. Right now, Max.
Lieutenant Max Rubin. Navy's final competitor, Colby Prince.
All right. Hello, back to the stream. We have Thomas Morrow going for Army as the anchor spot on floor. So far this rotation, Navy has been outdoing Army in terms of score. But Thomas wants to finish it off with a bang. Good double pike dismount, small hop backwards.
And that completes our rotation on our first apparatus. Coach and gymnast move on to our second apparatus. It's the pommel horse. Prior to the start of each competition, each team will get 90 seconds of touch time before they begin. The time is controlled by the judges at the apparatus.
We didn't get to commentate over Colby Prince's routine, but it looks like he scored a 13.3 and there's an inquiry on that. So we'll see if the coaches are going to get a boost in that difficulty value. Maybe the judges got an element value wrong or something like that. But overall for the scores so far, it looks like Navy has really stomped that floor rotation, all 13s across the board.
Those are great figures on floor. Floor tends to be one of the higher scoring events, right? And so if you can hit that 13, that's great. If you can push mid 13, even better. And once you get to 14, that's where you're scraping scores you'll see at the top of the leaderboard at an NCAA championships, right? And so you mentioned also that there is an inquiry on Colby Prince's routine. And just as a little bit of background information on that, that can be a bit of a risk because there's a limited number of inquiries coaches get. I believe you get to be wrong twice, right? And so you have to be strategic with your inquiries because if you say, hey, the start value is wrong and the judges look back and they disagree, now you have only one inquiry for the rest of the meet, right? And you're looking over 24 routines. So there's a bit of strategy when it comes to, fighting to get your scores increased. But when you know what you're talking about and you know you're right, it's more than worth the risk. Because as we see, Colby Prince's score is back in now at a 13.6. So he did, in fact, get a score boost from that.
Right, and that's super important, and also a little bit of behind the curtains that goes on. The coaching staff for each of these teams has to be actually judging their team's routines as they're going, or at least have a note of what elements they're getting credit for, what maybe they are not, so that when they make that inquiry, they have the right information. And that's why it's really important for the coaching staff to be really in tune with the judging rules, in terms of elements getting credit, what kind of deductions they would look out for. And you can see that really, did Navy some favor getting a 3/10 boost on that last routine for Colby Prince.
Said very well. And to take you all through the leaderboard just a little bit, as we can see, all of the scores are in now. And Navy junior Benjamin Thurlow Lamb has taken the floor title with a 13.75 in this first event. Navy actually swept the leaderboard. Navy is 1 through 4 with the Army athletes 5 through 8 on the leaderboard. Right, so his teammate Colby Prince at 13.6 and Daniel Garrett ending with that bronze on the podium of a 13.55. And another thing I would like to point out is the difference in difficulty value, right? Their potential maximum scores were higher than Army's across the board, right? The lowest start value that we saw from Navy was a 14.8 from 3 of their 4 athletes, and the one who was any higher was a 14.9. So that's really consistent difficulty among their lineup, and with very comparable execution all the way through, right? It's an important level of detail, and I bet it makes lineup very difficult to decide when you have so many athletes who are performing so well and so close together.
Yeah, iron sharpens iron. So when you have a team full of routines that could all make lineup and all have high difficulty, it just makes that rotation that much better. Army looked like they struggled a little bit, particularly on the dismounts as well. That's another big area where the judges can take multitude of deductions, not just steps. And then they also can miss out on that stick bonus. That's where Benjamin Thurlow Lamb got the edge with that 13.75. He also got that stick bonus. So sticking the dismount is super important.
As we shift gears here to pommel horse, one thing I would like to point out is that Navy is third in the conference on this event, but Army is first. Army has the highest average in the conference on pommel horse of a 52.625, whereas Navy is at a 51.817. Although their high is high enough to begin pushing Army's average, right, at around a 52.1 for Navy's best score of the season, right? And so this is where Army is going to try and create as much distance as they can or make up that ground that they lost on floor.
Yeah, they dug themselves in a little bit of a hole after floor, over 4 points behind, and so they're really going to be relying on this horse rotation. As you mentioned, number one in the conference, so their horse squad has got to step it up, do what we call stop the bleeding, and put together a string of great routines, capping it off with Maddox Pabellon from Army on pommel horse, who is going to be a routine to watch. She has a really high average score, above a 14 so far this season, and a 14 on horse is something, marking a great pommel horse specialist, and so that's going to be a routine to watch out for.
Absolutely. Maddox is an excellent horse worker, and I just appreciate his presence on the event as well. I love watching a confident athlete show off their skill, and I think that Maddox really brings that to the table. I mean, he's a fun guy, he's a charming guy, he's a confident guy, and so you can really see that in his horse, and even better when it's reflected in the highest score in the field, right?
Up first for Army, Blake Buchanan.
First up for Army is going to be Felipe Junqueira. Looking for clean lines, feet together, straight body, and a good rhythm. You don't want your circles to be speeding up and slowing down too much. You can see there was a small break there with the legs, but he's got a good rhythm so far, and he's staying on the horse. Travel back and forth cleanly and up to the dismount. This is super important to move quickly up there, and did a good job for that first routine on the leadoff spot.
Absolutely. And we talked about, once again, at the beginning of the meet, how important the leadoff is, and how now Army is in this position where they're on one of their, if not their strongest event relative to the conference, and they have a job to do, right? They got to dig themselves out of that hole. And competing on horse is already just so nerve-wracking. Knowing that this is the opportunity to pull ahead is just an added layer of pressure. And being able to compete under that pressure, while a privilege, is also exceptionally difficult. And so it was impressive of Felipe to stay on the horse and get the job done there when he needed to.
Yeah, horse specialists got to be pretty mentally focused, mentally strong, stay in the moment. It's a pretty precarious event.
And in the lead-off for Navy, we have freshman Cody Tokunaga. Starting off with the full scissor in the middle, and there for single handle ornaments. I really like the patience on his hand placements on the single handle. It's easy to speed up and get anxious to reestablish a solid foundation on two hands, but patience is a virtue, and it keeps you on the horse, and he demonstrated that just very well all throughout the routine, and that is a great first routine for Navy.
Yes, very clean. Nicely done. So 12.85 for Felipe to start off. Not a bad score, but could have scored a little bit higher and maybe potentially get into that 13 range, cleaning up a couple of those breaks in the middle of the routine.
Yeah, he had the knee bend and the separation on one of his single hand elements, that the Russian flop, we're getting technical, and they deduct per circle, right, even if it's the same skill. So, that was easily 3 to 4 tenths that he could have gotten back just on that one skill alone, right? That would have put him above that 13 mark.
All right. So getting started with Noah Duran. See a lot of these guys start off with those scissor elements. Noah's got a pretty straight circle on those single pommel elements, so it's a really nice technique there. Really difficult woo travel. turning as you move back and forth across the horse. So far, he's doing pretty well to stay up, and does a pirouette on the dismount to make sure that's a D element. That's a pretty solid routine as the second spot.
Noah is also a taller athlete, listed around 5'9", and that makes it just so much easier to reach across a horse on those travels, right? And create some distance between your body and your horse as you swing around. Although, of course, that comes with the drawback of single handle work might get a little tougher, right? Bigger athlete, bigger hands, and it's not like the handle grows with you, right? So being more intentional about your hand placements relative to the horse is something they have to look out for. Once again, that improved stability is a very nice advantage taller athletes tend to have on this event. All right, and moving now into Danilo Viciana for Navy. Showing very intentional extension on these single handle elements. Great flop sequence. And that was very nice as well. Slight leg separation, but pushing through. Magyar the long way with taking a full 5 circles. And right up to the handstand. All right. That was a good set. There were very few visible breaks in that routine. Yeah, and he is very hyped about that. That was a good routine. Although you can notice there was a very quick decision made at the end of his routine there on his dismount, in which you saw him hesitate with that last hand whether or not he was going to attempt a pirouette, right? Because he flew right up to that handstand, which is exactly what you want. But his balance point was a little off. It was on the wrong side of the horse to successfully complete a full pirouette for the additional 2/10 in difficulty value. And so he made the smart play, and instead of getting deducted going for it anyways, just took the regular dismount, and that's a hit.
Yeah, I think that was a good decision. You can see his center of balance was a little bit off. Might not have made it to his feet if he tried that. But this is Jake Prabhakaran for Army. Another one of those taller athletes, got a really nice line. You can see extended well beyond the horse. Open position, not skewed very much, so facing exactly forward on those travel elements. That's going to minimize deductions. And good dismount, and got the pirouette in there, so he's got full difficulty. Great routine.
I'm really impressed with the dismount so far. Typically, the dismount is the hardest part of pommel horse. I mean, there are a million different ways to incur deductions on your press handstand dismounts especially. And these athletes have clearly put a lot of work into improving theirs. They're swinging up to the handstand pretty well. They're being very smart about when to go for the pirouettes and how they're going about them. I'm very impressed.
Yeah, the techniques are looking much better. Typically you'll see in a gymnastics competition a few people slowly get their way up to the handstand. And that's a little surprising. I believe they downgraded the Russian dismounts on pommel horse, kind of forcing more pommel horse specialists to do the handstand, if I'm not mistaken. So you might want to see, take a lot of notice on those dismounts in particular.
You are correct about that. Full triple Russian dismount now only gets 3/10 for the element group value, whereas, if you do a handstand dismount, I think the cap ends wherever the hardest dismount ends. So I think you can get up to an F, right, and mirror that for the element group value. So it's a huge swing if you're able to successfully complete a difficult press element. And so now we just had our third Navy athlete come off the horse. That's Jonas Schultz, who seems to have come off on a Tong Fei, right, which is an element in which you reach all the way across the horse. It can be very difficult to get your body weight, your shoulders, your hips in the right place on these, long traveling elements. And it looks like his shoulders got a little too far behind him, so his hips came low to the horse, his feet came up, and he was unable to save it. The name of the game now is to minimize deductions, which he's doing very well in that travel sequence. The Magyar directly into the Savado, very common horse 1-2, and a beautiful press dismount. So, all right. And he's not letting it get to him. He's making sure, although the momentum might have stopped in his routine, it's not stopping for the team, right? Making sure he's cheering on his teammates, cheering himself on, because it was still a good effort. And all that's left to do is hit the next set.
Yeah, got to make sure you're staying positive and making sure you're setting up your next guy well. There's still one more athlete to go for Navy. So, Army has an opportunity here. They got to take advantage of it. We just saw a fall from Jonas Soltz. And last two athletes for Army scored very well, 13.5 and 13.4. So they're trying to make up a lot of ground from that opening floor rotation. And if you want someone to cap off a lineup in this competition, it's this guy, Maddox Pabillon. He's got a potential for a huge score, so Army's really relying on this routine here.
Absolutely. Fade of the rotation on the line. Give me Maddox.
Pay attention to the technique, the circle, the rhythm. You're going to see great extension and a noticeable separation in quality of the circle. Little separation there. That was a really difficult E value element on one pommel. All these elements done on a single pommel give the gymnast extra difficulty value. Another separation on that difficult Russianing travel. Good dismount to finish, but not quite up to par with some of the previous routines we've seen. You can see he's a little bit disappointed with that. It was a good routine, has a lot of difficulty, but he knows as a horse specialist he's capable of more.
You mentioned that there's a clear difference in Maddox routine from the average horse routine, and typically that is, of course, and preferably that is most visible when the athlete does exceptionally well. It just looks noticeably better in ways that are very difficult to describe. And in this routine, although there was fights, it was the way he managed the fights that showed off that skill and that just high-level performance Maddox is capable of. Because although he had the breaks, he refused to lose ground on that routine. He did not come off the horse, and when he did break, he maintained form as best as he could and kept pushing. His shoulders were in the right place, and he kept his hips open as well as he could. And so that's what you want to do when you're competing these difficult routines and you have the capability of these high scores. It's how you work with them because the sets never get easy. And now we have Brian Solomon, star for Navy, anchor, and Winter Cup qualifier this season. Good on the Savato. Oh, E-Russian flop, kind of late into the routine. Typically you see those before the travels because they're more difficult. And back into another travel with that Tong Fei. Unique construction. And he gets the dismount up with the full turn. That's a hit. Boom. Last time we saw Brian, he was competing horse in the all-around spot. And he did well enough so that Brandon and I both noticed that his score could have counted for the team were he not in that all-around spot. And today we see him not only in the lineup, but in the anchor spot.
Yeah, seems like he proved his place on the lineup first couple competitions of the year. And, as the season progresses, you'll see that kind of shift and lineups fully develop. And, he proved that even today, he proved that he deserved to be in that lineup. That was a great routine. So yeah, 13.2 from Maddox. Still up in the 13 range. That threshold is a good one to hit. But as I mentioned, his average is actually above a 14.0. So his score's lower due to those execution errors that we saw in the middle of the routine. But as Christian mentioned, it takes a lot of practice and mastery over the event itself to not actually fall off the event and minimize damage when those balance points get off and execution errors pile up. So minimize the damage for sure.
And if you want to look at difficulty scores again, we are seeing our first start values over a 15.0, and both from Army with Noah Duran at a 15.2 start value and Maddox Pavillon at a 15.3 start value as the most difficult routines in the meet so far. And it's especially cool to see that in comparison to floor where Army start values were lower relatively to Navy, and to see the way these athletes and these teams build lineups and build teams depending on their team strengths, right? So they can take those lower start values on the floor, because when it gets to horse, that's when the real swingers come out to really create and close that distance need be within the meet.
Yeah, absolutely, and they did actually beat out Navy with that with that rotation, 52.95 over a 51.7. So they chipped away a little bit at their deficit, but that floor rotation really put them in a hole. So they're going to have to continue to fight for every routine over the next 4 events.
It looks like each team has one event title apiece so far. Noah Duran coming away with the win on horse at 13.5. And so to take a look at these teams going into rings, Navy is second in conference with a 50.333 average, and unfortunately Army is 6th place in the conference with a 45.975 average, right? They're high at a 46.95. And so Army's going to show up and out today, right? They're going to definitely want to push for a season high on rings, because at this point in the competition, they cannot afford to go down 5 points to Navy if they want to still try and clutch the win at the end of the meet.
And rings is one of those events where, your averages and your season history are probably more, translatable to predicting how the outcome will be, just because it's one of the more stable events, not as risky as something like pommel horse or high bar. So the start values that you'll see are likely going to be very consistent with the competitions we've seen in the past. So it's a pretty good predictor of how the rotation will shape up. But, of course, the dismounts can be precarious, and sticking those dismounts can make a huge swing. So, if the gymnast wants to save the routine and get the highest score possible, those dismounts are going to make the difference.
You know it, Stiggy!
Rings is the strong man's event, so you're going to see a lot of very difficult strength elements being held. Each of them happen to be held for 2 seconds or more. We're looking for perfect positions, straight in line.
Come on now, Brian!
I like to tell the athletes, as I told myself when I competed rings in the ECAC, the harder your strength elements, the harder the judges try to take them from you, right? And so if you're going to be competing strength at, these difficult strength elements in a competition, they need to be undeniably excellent, right? Your skills need to command respect from the judges, because if not, there are so many ways they can deduct them, and the entire value of the strength element disappears in a flash.
Yeah, it's a balancing act between how difficult you want to go with the strength and what you think you can get away with in terms of getting credit for the element, and also deductions. As you mentioned, the judges are extremely strict. They're looking at how you enter the skill, how you hold it, how you exit, positions, and all those can be separate deductions and stack up if the strength element is not held correctly.
And I saw one athlete warm up like an iron cross pull to support element. I don't know if he intends to compete it. I hope he does, because I love those elements. They are very cool. I am a big fan of elements on rings where you pull from one position to another. It looks like you're defying gravity, and I think it's just an excellent display of strength. But that's an example of a skill where the deductions can stack up very quickly, right? Because if you do that, iron cross, and you hold it a little too high, you get a deduction for holding it high in the cross, and then before you've even begun the pull out to support, you also get deducted for high entry into the pull to support, right? And so you made one error, and that error doubles on you, right? And goodness gracious, please forbid that it's a 3/10 too high deduction, right? Because the skill itself is only worth 3/10 for the iron cross and 3/10 for the pull to support. If you get a 3/10 too high on the cross, then you carry that 3/10 too high on the pullout. Congratulations. The skill has now zeroed out at best because you lost 6/10 and did 6/10 worth of skill.
Yeah, that's absolutely brutal, and the judges will take note of that. So yeah, rings is not just about being able to hold the position, not just about being strong enough to do the skill, but you really want absolute perfection and mastery. And some of these bigger strength elements you'll see today, will note out any differentiation between that and other routines. And I believe they upgraded some of the cross elements very recently in the code of points. So I think we'll see a couple more of those, and I like that change. Correct me if I'm wrong, Christian. So it looks like our first athlete is up, Julian Galvez for Navy.
Come on now! Strong!
Uprise to straight planche. That's one of those difficult strength elements. And he's going to lower down to a cross. You can see his shoulders are directly in line with his hands. That's what you want to see. I'd say those holds are both pretty good. Clean swing up to the handstand. Those are also overlooked, but also very critical. See, he's picking up a little bit of swing. Those can end up being deductions if they are deemed too large. Got to time the swing correctly to get the dismount. See, he bailed a little bit early, and so that made the dismount travel forward as he was flipping through the air, which might have led to that small step on the dismount. But overall, that was a great lead-off routine.
And you were correct about the upgrade to cross elements, although it is to static cross elements, or static cross element singular. If you just lower from support into a cross, that is a C. But I believe all of the other entries remain unchanged. Which I also like, because I think a C for static cross is probably a little more fair. And also, I just like to incentivize that skill. I think it's a good skill. Probably should not be worth the same as a press handstand.
Yeah, I totally agree with that change.
All right, and we got Cash Johnson, first on rings. As we mentioned earlier, he's a taller athlete. You don't tend to see those on rings, but he makes it look good. I mean, he wouldn't be on lineup otherwise. Right? It's a big team. It's a difficult lineup to make. Beautiful touchdown long, but you connect directly into that front triangle to get a little bit of an upgrade. It increases the value of that down walk on the board. I think the front element to a C. Follows up with the back giant, another swinging element.
All you, baby! All you, Garrett!
Giant through, tuck half, and a big old stick. Great landing from Cash, great lead offset. We'll see a lot of tuck half-halves today, and so we should be going back and forth with these sticks on rings. All right, you can spot the ground forever on a tuck half-half.
Yeah, and you can see that was a great example in particular of spotting the ground while you do the skill. That was great technique. You can see his face was pointed towards the ground almost the entire time. He took advantage of that, being an easier dismount to take advantage of the stick bonus. So.
And while Cash did a good job, it was also a fairly simple set. Now you have to do more difficult elements if you want to receive full element group value for these strength elements. And he did not have any D or higher strength skills in his routine. And so for his element group 2 and 3, he is going to be taking some hits to the start value there that some of these other athletes are going to be able to capitalize on, like Garrett Lawless is right now with that uprise Maltese.
Yeah, so right out the gate, got that requirement and held the Maltese in a pretty good position in line with the rings. Nice uprise to cross. And lower down to the back lever. Kind of a unique skill. A little bit of old school.
It's a quick and easy B.
And wants to be really steady and stable here. Take his breath as he gets ready. A little bit of an arm check on that swing to handstand. Judges are looking for straight arms there. And got the stick for that dismount. So again, same dismount we saw from previous two athletes, and got the stick.
Yeah, and we'll have to keep an eye on the execution score on that one. Most of the team is very good. He did have that balance check on that last swing to handstand element, and which are also called giants. And judging has gotten real tight on giants in recent years. Arms on the strap, significant arm bend, significant hip bend. If they get drastic enough, the judges will take credit and deduct accordingly, right? And so depending on what the judges saw from where they're sitting in the arena, you can go anywhere from huge deductions on that to a couple small ones. Now we have Noah Duran starting with that upright straddle plunge. Now he's going into that static cross I talked about. It's good. Oh, back kick to support. That's a unique skill. You don't really see that. It's rare to see it connected into a strength element, let alone just by itself.
Yeah, putting a little bit of artistry in there. I like that.
Oh, it's cool. Putting the swing elements out of the way now. Looks like he's gearing up for a dismount. Can he find the stick? Launch it. Just the 1/10 hop, but it was a good set.
Yeah, and you mentioned needing one of those high difficulty strength elements. I don't believe he had one of those in the routine, so that difficulty score is going to suffer a little bit.
Yeah, as we can see, Cash Johnston scores, and while he has a 8.8 E-score, right, only 1-2 off, which is very good. Unfortunately, he only starts from a 13.2, and that is going to be it's not going to be especially competitive in this rings field today, unfortunately.
Yeah, so really want to take advantage of what's happening in the routine and the dismount as well, to try and make up that ground and get as high execution score as possible.
I'm not seeing his stick bonus though on my end, so please correct me if I'm wrong. But if they go to inquire about that at the end, he should go up 1/10 to a 12-1 and a 13 to a start value. But we'll see what happens.
Now we got Aaron Stein for Navy. Third up in the rotation. Really difficult uprise to Maltese. Good hold, solid in position, and then pull up lower to static cross. These elements take years to develop the strength to do them well. And this is the detail stuff. The L holds, the press to handstand, making sure there's straight arms. That looked pretty good. Straight body position, arms off the straps. Those are all little difference makers that really boost the ring score, and they're super important, especially in a competition like this. I'd say those handstands are pretty good. Not seeing too many arm checks, and a laid out full twisting double backflip. So more difficulty on that dismount. Didn't quite get the stick, but went for a little bit higher of a start value with that dismount.
Yeah, it's the most difficult dismount we've seen so far, and it's worth a D value, right? And so he's going to get 4/10 for the skill, 4/10 for the element group. So he did take the 1/10 hop, but compared to an athlete who's doing the tuck half-half, which is a C, he's 2/10 up on that, right? If that athlete doing the tuck sticks, then he's only 1/10 up, right? And they break even because they took the 1/10 hop, but that's part of the benefit with boosting or mirroring the value of these dismounts a little bit to incentivize these athletes to go for these big dismounts.
Yeah, and I'd say it's worth the risk in most cases with that dismount, so long as you are able to stay straight in the air. You can see on that dismount he's a little bit piked, and it can be a little bit nebulous on what kind of deductions the judges will take in the air, but it is required to be a straight position in order to get full value for that skill.
One small thing to look at, just because I myself was a big rings guy, especially in the ECAC. I did Malteses as well, and it's really interesting to look at what muscles the athletes use when they're doing these strength elements, right? Everyone has, different strengths. You'd think everyone would use the same exact muscles, but if you have stronger lats, you use that. If you have a stronger chest or back, you use those parts, right? And so you can definitely see when Aaron did his Maltese and his cross that he was stronger in his back muscles, and that affected the way he held it and the shape he held it in, but he held it, right? I personally used more chest muscles, chest and lats. Brandon, did you ever do a Maltese?
I did, and I would say I was more of a closed, hollow chest, kind of chest in front of the shoulders kind of technique, and I think that's a little bit more standard. But either way works. You'll see many different rings workers choosing to use different techniques on those, and it just depends on kind of your body type and how you've developed your strength, and whatever you can make work is worth it.
Starting with a kip L, so that's going to satisfy his swing of strength element group. That's a B for that element group 3. L, and then a lower cross to satisfy that element group 2. Right, and so he'll be a little higher than his teammates in start value for that. Both sets of Yamawakis, electing not to go for the swing handstand, but instead control it and then straddle out and press the handstand. Some back up to that handstand. There we go. Tighten that back a little bit. The judges will deduct for that arch. Lean through. Can he find the stick? Big pull. There we go. And he gets the stick. That's an extra 10th back to the routine, and every 10th matters.
That's what we wanted to see from Army, finally taking advantage of that stick. Last up for Navy is going to be Brian Solomon. Navy's depending a lot on this guy. Looks like he's competing 4 events today. Big contributor to the score.
If I had to guess, I would say that Jane Blank is probably going to be Army's highest score in the ring so far.
I would guess as well. Brian's highest score this season so far in rings is a 13-0, so has potential to be the highest score for Navy this year, or for this competition. Really difficult uprise most bounce to cross, so that's a D element for that upgrade to the cross. Nice pike Yamawaki uprise to L. A little bit of form. You see his arms are a little bit on the straps, potential for some minor deductions, but a big double dismount, E value, super difficult. Put it down to his feet, so that was a great routine to cap off the rotation for Navy.
I'm gonna keep an eye on the execution score, just because I'm a little worried about that uprise Maltese. It looked like he might not have been completely flat and had a slight arch in his back, right? And the judges will deduct for both of those. They'll deduct for your deviation for a flat plane, and they'll deduct for the arch. And so that's something to keep an eye on if his execution score is a little bit lower than it looks like it might ordinarily be. That being said, I don't think the judges are being too mean today, so I can't imagine they're going to rob him blind. And we've got some score updates as well. Cash Johnson's score has updated to a 12-1, so I was correct about that. And Jaden Blank's score is in at a 12-4, so I was also correct in that he would be the highest score for the squad so far. So Put me out there. I think I'm ready to judge. Good low cross. Powerful swing elements. Had to fight to keep that handstand though, and he did it very well by turning his rings out to fight forward instead of in. Because once you turn your rings in, that's where you get deduction. Pretty double layout to this stick. I love a good double layout, man. They are very, very difficult to do well, especially at the end of a set. And I think he did a good job with that.
Yeah, that looked really nice and leaves a lasting impression on the routine when you can do a high, well-executed dismount like that. So Brian Solomon had that really high difficulty value of a 14.4, but as you mentioned, that execution suffered a little bit, even though he had a higher difficulty value, scoring a 12.6.
I don't know how you fans feel at home, but of course, I'm biased in that I love rings. I was a 2-time rings conference champion and like a 2-time NCAA finalist on rings. So clearly I hold a soft spot for it, but I think it's just a very aesthetic event. And I think it's very easy to understand, despite being very difficult, right? So everyone knows what a flat cross looks like. And when it's too high, it's easy to see, right? When a Maltese isn't flat or a planche isn't flat, that's easy to see. When someone's balance checking their handstands, that's also something that you can see. And so it's a little less nebulous, as a great word I'm going to borrow from Brandon, than a horse score might seem on first glance, because just looking through, once you learn what to look for, it's pretty easy to see what, you know, the judges are reacting to and which scores pull ahead and why.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's a little more clear for maybe a new watcher of gymnastics or someone not as seasoned with like the technical details, just because it's a little bit slower. There are holds in the routine, and so it's a little bit easier to kind of take notice of those things. And also, I think it's worth noting that it's pretty translatable to someone who's never done gymnastics before, at least compared to other events. Like, people can put themselves in a horizontal position on the floor and try to lift themselves up. They have a more in tune intuition behind how difficult a strength move is between one and the other, like an L hold or a handstand versus a cross, and then an inverted cross or a Maltese. So I think it just translates well to new watchers of gymnastics. I think that's why things like the iron cross are so well associated with gymnastics, as opposed to, you know, an event like maybe floor high bar, where it's pretty difficult for a non-gymnast to conceptualize how much more difficult a Cassina is versus a Coleman, just because there's no reference to anything even close to that in normal day-to-day life. So I do think that's an interesting point to make about, you know, relating rings routines and rings elements to the everyday watcher. I do agree. I think it's a great event for that.
And most importantly, if you are a gymnast, a lot of people ask you if you can do the thing on rings, and they stick their hands out to the side and ask you if you can do an iron cross. So first of all, you want to be able to say yes. And really, most importantly of all, you want to get a picture of yourself in an iron cross, because it looks fantastic and you can post it on social media. And that's what we all really do it for anyways, right? Everyone's just training like a gajillion hours a week to look really cool on Instagram. At least that's why I did it.
Yeah, and I never did a cross or competed it. And so, you know, when you're growing up, people always ask you that question, oh, can you do the cross? And, you know, if you say, oh no, but I do the horizontal version, the Maltese, people always look at you like they don't know what that is. They just only know the cross. So sometimes it's easier to just relate to them that way.
Yeah, absolutely. I only competed across twice actually. When I was like a sophomore, I did a uprise cross and then a cross pull support, which I'm now remembering we didn't see, although we saw someone warm it up. I really hope that makes it into their set. It's a really cool skill. And I did not get any pictures in it, and that always made me so sad because I have a million pictures of me in a straddle L. Although the couple pictures of me in a Maltese do look just incredible. So I guarantee you that is in the background of a lot of these athletes as they're training, just waiting for the day that they get their awesome iron cross picture.
Yep, and you want those strength elements to be executed well and in perfect position, so when those pictures do show up, you're not seeing any deviations.
Right, it looks like our scores are fully updated here. Carter Beck's score comes in at a 12.7, which I think means we have a tie for the rings title, don't we?
Julian Galvez got 12.8.
Yeah, no, so there's a tie for second, but that tie will go to Carter Beck because he has that higher E score at a 9.2.
Yeah, so I think Army did a good job of minimizing that score differential, even though they have much lower difficulty values. They were pretty clean in those routines, and they got 3 out of 4 sticks.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree with you. That could have been real rough, and Army made sure that it was not. Right, and so 5 points is that's a big gap, but it's not impossible, right? And that's what we're here for. I mean, these athletes don't work this hard for nothing. Every single one of those athletes on the floor right now is still competing to win, and I cannot wait to see how this meet finishes.
Wow, it looks like we got a pretty sizable crowd for this competition. I love to see it.
No, the Star Meet, it's a big deal, man. I'm sure there's lots of Go Navy beat Armies rolling around in there. Okay.
Was that for competition?
I think it was. Oh no. So it looks like he might have messed up his steps. They only seem to do a tuck souk half.
Yeah, I'm not sure what the difficulty value for a tuck souk half is, but I imagine it's probably the same as just a tuck souk, which is going to be very unfortunate start to that rotation on vault because that start value is going to be extremely low.
I wonder if he messed up his steps, or if he hit a sour spot on the board, or if he just balked. Funnily enough, that's actually my club teammate, Jacob Brenner. We both grew up in Maryland at Preston Gymnastics Academy. So I might have to ask him later what happened. But his score is in at an 11.2 from a 12.4. And so that's really tough because most of these athletes who are going to be competing today are going to be competing a vault that starts at a 14.4. That is 2 full points higher, right? And so if one of these athletes goes right now, does a double full, and does well, they can pull ahead by over 2 points on just one routine alone.
Yeah, so Cosfull, as you mentioned, double twisting Kazumatsu style vault by Daniel Gurevich. Landed pretty low and had a big hop forward, so those are going to be sizable deductions. But yeah, that's a very unfortunate opening routine from Jacob Brenner. A couple of things could have happened. Could have been steps, could have been missing the board, could have been a slip on the table. All those things could happen in a fraction of a second that throw the vault off. But it's up to the remaining gymnasts in the rotation to put that out of their mind and go ahead, hit some big vaults.
Back to Army here. Got to pick back up. Very nice double full.
Yeah, so that was good. Landed more upright and hopped backwards as opposed to forward. Makes some of those lack of prep deductions a little less attainable with that.
If I were a guessing man, I would say that Mr. Garevich, who went first for Navy, landed so low because I think he was fighting for that stick. He finished a twist with enough time and had enough air time to spot for it. I think he just didn't quite catch it, and when he opens, he caught it short. And they just hammer you on those landings, as you explained.
Yeah, so Felipe's score just came in 13.65 contrasting Gurevich is 13-2. That's the difference, was the landing. Landing with chest low, hop forward, and I believe his foot went out of bounds. Yep, you can see the neutral deduction there. So 1 foot out of bounds, 1/10 neutral deduction, and 2 feet 3/10.
Let's go, Jonah.
But this is Jonah Soltz going for Navy. You see the mat set up for a Yurchenko style vault, so that's pretty similar to what you'll see for women's gymnastics. He's going to do a round off onto the board and then go backwards onto the table. Double twist, and really nice up and down. Yep, had a small hop but stayed in bounds, so that was a great vault.
Yeah, and just to expand a little bit on something you said, it was very up and down. And sometimes that means bad things. Like if you're on a horse, you don't want an up and down circle because that's really hard to control. But when you're talking about these landing elements, up and down is perfect, right? Because it's that forward and backwards movement that makes these landings really hard to catch. But if something's going straight up and straight down, more or less, then it's a lot easier to catch that landing and prepare for it. And so his ability to take that back handspring and block it right up means that he can open from the twist and he doesn't have to fight as hard, for his landing with lateral movements.
Exactly. Oh, Jaden Blank with the stick.
Right down the middle too. I don't know if you caught that, but that was like a dart in a bullseye. That was awesome.
That was money, straight down the line. And we were talking about going up and down, and I think that's more applicable to a Yurchenko style vault where you're coming on backwards. You can pop it straight up. Vaults like that we just saw Kaz full. You'll see nice technique most of the time involves going far as well, and you can see that was a great example of how to do that vault well. Nice amplitude, opened up, saw the ground, stuck the landing.
I don't want to get ahead of myself here, but I think Brian Solomon does a unique vault. I think he does a front handspring 1.5 twist, which is worth the same as these Kazamatsu fulls and these Yurchenko double fulls that we're seeing. Just a different entry because that's what works for this athlete, and I love to see it because I love unique vault entries. He does.
Yep, you got it exactly right.
Yeah,
so handspring 1.5.
And an added benefit of that is it's definitely a little awkward to initiate these twists going forwards, right? And so you'll see athletes do these pike open techniques to kind of create the torque to turn their bodies in that way. But the benefit of dealing with something that might be a little awkward in the air on the back end is that on the front end the deductions are minimized. Right? When you're doing these cartwheeling elements to the table, it is so easy for your legs to separate. In fact, you almost never see an athlete do a Kazamatsu or Sukahara style vault where they keep their legs together. But if you're doing a front handspring, because you're not ripping over the side like that, it's much easier to keep your legs together and straight as you approach the table. And since the judges are deducting for that, it's just a bonus in that. Not a bonus in that, it's just an advantage in that. That's not something you have to worry about.
Yeah, I was gonna say you get that 1 or 2 tenths back, or I guess 1 to 3 tenths back most of the time doing a front handspring style vault. That's why you'll see at the Olympic level, a lot of podium makers are gymnasts that do the handspring vault because you effectively get 1 to 3 tenths back on the vault just from that small deduction that happens between the board and the table. And so it's kind of an unfortunate side effect of the style of vault. But if you can take advantage of it by doing that, it's worth it.
Absolutely. Oh, it's
wow.
1.5.
That was big air. So most difficult vault we've seen, and you can see, noticeably why. It's super high in the air, did an extra half turn, and that gives him an extra 4 tenths in the difficulty value.
It does. And it's good he put that to his feet. Obviously, he took it looks like 2 large steps forwards, although this cap it at 310 maximum each. But I was there last time he competed this in the field house, and he stuck it cold. So I know, as a high-achieving athlete, Matthew is going to be a little annoyed that he took those, not 1 step, but 2, when he knows he's capable of sticking.
Yeah, so 13-2 for that vault, stepping out of bounds. But right. Jaden Blank, well-deserved win on vault. That was a stomped, stuck, cause full, nice vault.
Just goes to show that difficulty is not everything. You got to balance that risk and reward.
So yeah, that opening vault from Jacob Brenner really did a number on that vault rotation. The rest of the 3 vaults were very good, so minimizing that error as much as they can.
Yeah, Jacob has one more event left today on parallel bars. And so floor was a little rough for him as well, and I'm really looking forward to him redeeming his meet just a little bit on parallel bars. I'm really pulling for him.
Yeah, that's super important as an athlete to be able to move on, put it out of your mind, focus on what your job is for the next event. You know, you got a job to do for the team as leadoff man on parallel bars, so we're rooting for him to get a good routine there.
As we've gone through the event, I've been mentioning whether these events are higher or lower scoring, and vault is the highest scoring event in men's gymnastics, and you'll see that reflected in these scores here. This will be the highest event total for both teams today, almost certainly. Navy is ranked second on this event, whereas Army is ranked fourth. So it was expected that Navy would take this event, but the margin probably would have swung the other direction had Mr. Brenner been able to get his intended vault off. Because a 1.4 difference, if he was doing a double full or 1.5, he'd be right in there.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, moving to parallel bars, where I'm sure my heart is going to stop about 5 times throughout the rotation. Parallel bars is just so tricky, and with some of the rule changes this code, these single rail elements these athletes are doing, they can be so dicey as they're trying to get full value for that element group. And so I expect this to be a bit of a roller coaster. We've got Army, who is ranked second in the conference, ahead of Navy, who's ranked fourth in the conference. And so Army is averaging actually about 2 points higher on parallel bars than Navy, and their high is 3 point higher than Navy's high. So this is another place where Army can, shrink that gap and try to pull ahead as much as they can, because this is where they've got to capitalize.
Yeah, I'm excited for this one. I'm excited for this rotation. Want to see those routines. As you mentioned, there's a lot of emphasis on those difficult support elements to get full advantage of get full credit for those element groups. And so you'll see some pretty unique stuff. I think parallel bars is pretty interesting in that way. There's so many different elements and styles and ways to do skills. You can go under the bar, support, upper arm, that I think it just yields a lot of variety and makes it an interesting event to watch.
Oh, absolutely. I was more of an underbar guy, so the peach basket elements, the giant elements, these long hang elements were my preferred skill. But I've got, teammates who just excelled at the support work, and now you can't do as many front upright elements, but there was a time where if you could capitalize on the support elements, you were essentially untouchable.
Right, because those support or upper arm support elements are really difficult just inherently, and like the technique needed for the skill. And because in the past you were able to do a lot of them, if you took that strategy, or you were naturally talented or gifted or focused on that type of element, you'd get a lot of added benefit over other athletes. And you'll see every one of these routines, the gymnast is going to be able to play to their strengths, because it is one of those, it's the nature of the event allows for variety. So I think that really helps, especially as you mentioned, Army having a good average on this event. Having access to those variety of skills helps.
Yeah. I'm going to say something controversial right now as we see the athletes preparing the parallel bars for this rotation, and say that the parallel bars lineup, parallel bars guys are the biggest divas in men's gymnastics. The way they are chalking the bar up, sanding them down, putting water on, taking water off. You know, it's chemistry personified as they're trying to get the grip just right for their parallel bar routine and the athletes who come after them. But the way everyone has a different preference drives me up the wall. At a certain point, I'm like, put the chalk and honey on your hands and just figure it out on the fly. If you slip, you slip.
Yeah, and that's another, kind of behind the curtains thing, is that every gymnast has their own preference. If they're doing a lot of underbar elements, especially difficult ones, peaches, giant dioms, bells, that kind of thing, they need a really good grip, and, they've got to make sure that that's set as part of the routine also.
It's definitely important. Ooh, I like that dismount a lot. I'm very picky about double fronts on parallel bars because they've become a lot more popular, but I'm not sure it's the right move for everyone. It's worth 2 more tenths than a back double pike, which used to be the most popular dismount. But if you pull your knees apart or cowboy to speed up and land it, then it's not worth it, especially because it's a blind landing.
Yeah, it is pretty difficult. And as you mentioned, it makes sticking the dismount even harder because it is blind. So
double front is one of those skills, like on parallel bars, is one of those skills where you essentially have to do it the same every time. As far as I'm concerned, when I competed one, if I did all of the steps right, the skill stuck itself. It wasn't quite the same as like a back landing dismount where you can see and prepare for it regardless of where you are in the air. For me, it was all about the prep, and if I did all of the prep work correctly on the bars, then I was going to stick. And I think a lot of athletes try to work it in the air, and I mean, if something goes wrong, that's what you got to do in a competition scenario. But I think that effort might be better placed on the release into this skill, right? Because then you don't have to do anything in the air except for count to 2 and open.
yeah, you mentioned the prep, and that's a good point. The double front dismount, because you have to start in that forward position, requires a front uprise. So the front uprise is effectively part of the skill. So you can't neglect that, and that technique for the skill starts way beyond the point where you get into the air. So right there, that front uprise, that's part of the skill. That sets you up to do the skill correctly or incorrectly. So, that adds, complexity to the dismount as well. More energy, taking away from some of your endurance. So, doing a double front versus a double pike is kind of a big deal. Big change to the routine.
And for those at home who want to get better at looking at gymnastics technique, what to look for, if you want to tell whether or not someone's going to land a double front before they've even hit the floor, is on their release, you can look to see if their shoulder is leaned forward over their hand and their heels are above their head. There's a pretty good chance they're going to make it, as long as they don't open up too early. If their heels aren't high enough or their shoulder is behind their hands, they're going to probably push away too early, or they're not going to rotate, and it's going to be very, very difficult to land it, if at all.
Yeah, that's that patience that you kind of need to have on that, and similar to other skills and other events where you can't just force it. You have to be patient and respect the technique. It looks like we're getting started. Got Colby Prince leading off the run on parallel bars for Navy. Looks like he's going to have a pretty unique mount on the sidebar. Free hip to handstand. Oh, and just really took a hard hit on that one. That's going to be a big deduction to start off. No credit for that skill as well. Back toss. Studs. He's doing well on the support elements. But that lead off skill is going to take a dent in the routine score. Double pike dismount. Yeah, don't want to see that as a lead-off spot, but did well to stay in the moment and at least finish a lot of the support elements very well. Didn't let that error snowball into anything really significant after that.
we've talked a lot about element groups today, and there are, and I think that the difference that the changes they've made to the element groups in men's gymnastics scoring is most visible on rings and on parallel bars, where you're seeing these athletes go for skills that are just visibly more difficult, and you might be wondering why, and it is really the only way to maximize their potential scores, right? And it just happens that on those two events, the jump from average skills to the skills that get that full difficulty value is just very difficult. And so, that comes with some errors, right? So when you see these athletes struggling on these single rail elements, it's because they're, doing their best with some really tricky gymnastics.
Yeah, and maybe things that they didn't necessarily need prior. Oh, great stuck dismount.
Loved that. I talked about how picky I was. That was gorgeous.
Yeah, great routine on parallel bars from Jaden Blank for Army. So trying to chip away at that lead.
Oh, looks like that was actually a last-minute change. And that I mentioned Jacob Brenner was going to compete on parallel bars, and he was previously in the leadoff spot, and it looks like he is not anymore. It doesn't look like he's in a parallel lineup at all anymore, actually.
Yeah, wonder if there was some kind of injury or, issue. You mentioned that he was struggling a little bit on floor as well, in addition to the vault, so could be a strategy that the coaching staff made to maybe pull him on that event to, try and maximize the remainder of the competition.
Also emphasize just how important it is to be ready as the next guy up, that fifth guy, that sixth guy, because sometimes injuries happen. Sometimes, someone's just having a bad day and it needs to be your turn to be ready. And so it can feel pretty rough to be in that fifth guy spot where you're doing all the work and you're not getting to raise your hand at the meet. But when that time comes, all that work and effort pays off, just like Jaden showed us.
Yeah, you never know what could happen on the day of the meet, so you got to be ready and have those backups, prepared, ready to go. They got to warm up just the same as everyone else, and that's the reason why. Yeah, 11.15 from Colby for that leadoff. This is Danilo Viciana. Really wants to stop the bleeding here and do a great routine. Big to pelt swing from the end of the bars into the center. Good extension in the handstand on those elements. Let's see, he has pretty good control and a solid frame in the handstand. He's not wobbling, he's not stepping. That's usually a good sign of a good parallel bar worker, is when they have a solid handstand foundation. Double pike dismount. Nice stuck dismount. That's going to be a great score.
That was a good routine. And talk about confidence. You could just see every skill in that routine he knew he was going to make before he began, right? And it just showed that he was able to focus on the execution and just performing each element to the best of his ability.
Yeah, it's a difference maker. And although there are points in a parallel bar routine where you stop and almost rest in a handstand, a routine that has a rhythm and a flow to it, and as you mentioned, a confidence and a kind of stomping the handstands, just visually makes a big difference, and also helps with the flow of the routine. Getting that execution score higher is dependent on the rhythm as well, not just the elements themselves.
Jaden Blank scores in at a 12.95. Wow. From a 13.6, a 9.25 E-score. That is very impressive. And you see that's also almost a 2-point swing in Army's favor after just one routine so far.
Yeah, so there you go. Meet's not over. Anything can happen.
So mounting from the springboard, likely going to see a peach, a handstand style mount here. There it is. It can be easier to handle the drop in timing on those peach basket elements, as he just does another one support right there. If you instead of bailing from a handstand, you jump from a springboard. So that's why that tends to be a little more common recently. Oh, so we see the Peters there. He had the leg separation. That's one of those skills, those tricky single rail elements where he is going to maximize his difficulty for those support skills because that's an element too. Big double front here. Looks good. Woo, huge. Too much power. That was a good set, Noah. Obviously, there's the split on the Peters, difficult element. He's going to get credit for it, but he's just going to incur those deductions, and then he bounced a little bit out of that double front. They're the bones of an absolutely great set there. And so I look forward to seeing that around conference time. And Noah, if you keep overdoing your double front, I think it would be really cool to just add a half turn, because then you can spot the ground and stick it. So if you listen to this back, I'm giving you permission to try a double front half. Or double pike.
Yeah,
Double pike is also an option if you're a really brawler.
The difference between a double front tuck and a double front pike is astronomical in terms of the difficulty.
The energy expenditure is absolutely not worth it. I did it exactly one time ever on hard ground just to see if I could. And I did it, and I was like, that was really cool. Never worth it. But Danilo's score is in at a 12.85. Once again, a really, really nice E score there. 8.85. That's right in range. Started from a 13.9.
Yep, here we get started with Brian Solomon. His last routine for the day. There's that to pelt. Very clean, and that knees were pretty straight. Really hard to get your form correct on that skill. Huge front uprise to a straddle 1 1/4. He's going to come back to the end of the bars and do a moi. A little bit of looseness in the handstand. You can see he might be getting a little tired. It's really important to get all the energy into this front uprise. Does well. And that was a good dismount. Opened up a little bit early, but he was patient, as you mentioned. It's really easy when you're tired and sort of your handstand's starting to go to rush that dismount, and that can lead to you falling or under rotating it. But he did really well on the technique. Stay big on the front uprise, get his shoulders in front, and wait for his heels to go up before releasing.
He worked through that like an expert. Although I'm going to point out something nitpicky that I know the judges had an eye on as well. You mentioned earlier how the front uprise before the double front is essentially part of that skill because it's required to actually get off the rails. And he had a pretty sizable knee bend on that front uprise, right? And so they will take that. It's possible he lost up to 3/10 on that knee bend as he swung through the bottom on his front uprise before he even got to the double front. And so it's in those margins is where they find the difference between these scores. And I definitely prefer to just flatter the athletes because gymnastics is really hard and what they're doing is very impressive. But it's also important to note where these deductions are coming from a little bit, so everyone can understand just a little bit better how the scoring works.
Yeah, those little things are separators.
100%. And we got Cash Johnston back up. This is a busy man. We've seen him several times today. The privilege of being absolutely exhausted at the end of a meet, I'm sure, is one he is very familiar with. Very nice toe point. He's got a good handstand line. Good to belt there. And he's got a very nice handstand. Ooh, damn. Good fight. Flexible back and strong shoulders. Nice flight and nice stutz. That hop, though, will be a 10th that they take. Intentional execution on that. Really beautiful. Going up for the dismount here. Double pike. Woo. And he catches it. Big hop forward, but that's a hit. Good job, Cash.
Yeah, I liked the line on that handstand, and that Healy was very well done.
Visibly, that was a very nice routine. It is underrated when an athlete has very good toe point in men's gymnastics, but it truly does just accentuate the body line, and especially the way Cash pushed tall in his handstands. It was very pleasing to watch as a spectator.
So it looks like they raised the bars a notch, and you can do that if the athlete is tall enough or too tall and scrapes the bottom of the mat.
It's a problem I wish I had. Unfortunately, I felt I fit just fine underneath the parallel bars.
Yes, this is Matthew Petros for Navy. Difficult upper arm element, as we were talking about earlier. Those skills are really difficult in terms of the technique needed to pull them off, but he did that well. Nice and tall in the handstand, minimizing errors on the stepping. Hitting the handstand angles nicely, and now he's going to do a peach. Try and catch his breath before the dismount. So far, this is a nice, clean routine. Pretty good difficulty. Looks like he's going to do a double pike. Oh, that was just unfortunate error. That was definitely high enough to land. I think he was going for the stick because you can see he opened up pretty early and just put his hands down. It's going to be a fall on that dismount, which could have easily been a stick.
Those of you who've heard me commentate before, it's something I affectionately refer to as the Icarus effect. When you fly a little too close to the sun because you've got a whole lot of airtime, and you fall too close to the sun, and then you fall back down to the ocean.
Yeah, that was good technique. I was, I saw him in the air. I saw his setup, push up in the handstand, swing down. Unfortunate.
Nick Lester, man, a guy who's got some pressure on him right now. This is a pivotal moment in this rotation. Army's ahead by 1.1 right now, so if he can hit, Matthew Petros' score isn't even in. So if Nick Lester can hit this, he can swing this rotation. He can swing the meat. 3 points in Army's favor right here. Each handstand, a little bit shy of the handstand, but that's still getting credit. Whoa, giant Diamidov. That's a very difficult skill. Huge gymnastics here. Very nice giant afterwards. Woof! Massive. He scraped the clouds on that front uprise straddle front. Working to the dismount here. Oh no. Man, the rest of that set was so good. And if we do a slight callback to what I was talking about earlier, patience and that shoulder position relative to the body on release when you're doing a double front. So it looks like Nick got his shoulders behind him and behind his hand instead of over his hand while he posted for his dismount. And because of that, although he had good rotation from his heels being up, he pushed away backwards. And if you push away backwards on a forward flipping element, it's really hard, if not impossible, to catch most of the time. So unfortunately, he fell victim to that error that is just so common. And at least the rest of that set was absolutely bomb. So, consolation there. I guess silver lining, more accurately.
Yeah, that routine was going really well. I loved the difficulty in there. Some great skills. Yeah, I think you could tell right off the bat, got a little ahead of himself on that dismount. But that has potential to be a big routine if he puts that all together.
Looks like we have got all of our scores back. If you want to take us through the leaderboard, Brandon.
Yeah, so looks like the highest score for parallel bars today comes in from Jane Blank. 12.95 from a 13.6. So had a pretty low difficulty start value, but super clean, as you mentioned. Less than, or a little more than 6/10 off. That's a really big execution score, and he stuck the dismount. So 12.95 for the win there. And yeah, there were a couple of errors, as we saw from Navy, Colby Prince and Matthew Petros, that Army could have taken advantage of. And unfortunately, with that fall from Nick Lester, that opportunity was a little bit squandered. But yeah, 12.85 and 12.8 from those center two Navy competitors. Those are great scores as well, second and third.
I still wouldn't say that Army is out of this. I mean, high bar can snowball out of control so fast and so easily. I mean, think about it. 2 athletes fall and get 10s, and then 2 2 Navy athletes fall and get 10s. 2 Army athletes hit and get mid 12s, and that's the difference right there. That's 5 points.
Yep, can't celebrate too early, and anything can happen, especially on high bar. So it makes it fun as the last event in Olympic order.
Absolutely. And so just to give a very brief and broad overview of the meet, we are trading back and forth event titles here. Navy event title on floor, Army on horse. Navy on rings, Army on vault, Army on parallel bars. So it looks like Army, even if they don't win, can pull away with the most individual titles today.
Yeah, they had a couple of standout routines, and more to come. We'll see what they can put out on high bar as well. So looking forward to high bar. It's one of the most exciting events in my opinion. There's always lots of variety, big high-flying releases, and there's an element of risk associated with this event that's pretty unique compared to the other ones.
Oh, absolutely. And to give you some insider perspective to those of you who are listening from home or elsewhere, the Navy high bar mats, the direction most athletes tend to face, they dismount looking directly at the crowd, probably 15 feet away from the landing mat. And so I think there's a lot of energy in their high bar space, just as it's located within the venue. It's really cool to have all those eyes on you, and then to be able to feel that energy directly on you as you're competing, and especially as you're landing, because hitting a good set directly into a cheering crowd is a pretty awesome feeling that you can't really replicate anywhere else. And additionally, I live here on the East Coast. I actually live in Maryland and work in Annapolis every day. I actually work directly next to the Naval Academy, and it is freezing here. It snowed yesterday, and the field house does not keep heat super well, so I know it is just frigid in there, and these athletes are not making it, so that you can tell.
Yeah, and I don't know about you, but high bar in particular, when I'm cold, is not a good time. You want your hands to be warm and agile, and feeling the grip of the bar, feeling the slide of the bar. As you do these taps, these preparation movements to get yourself some bounce off the bar and fly and do the releases and the dismount. For me, the tactility of my hand and the grip strength from the on the bar is super important, and so really gonna come down to technique and trusting the training, especially if in a cold environment like this. But luckily for Navy, they're used to this.
Yeah, a little bit of a home field advantage. And so for more technical things to look out for as we differentiate these scores and turn you all into gymnastics experts at home, obviously catch and releases is a huge deal, and you really want to put yourself back on the bar every time you let go, I guess, except for your dismount. But angles is the name of the game recently. With these element group changes, if you want to maximize those start values, you need to be doing these in-bar elements, right, which are often in the form of jam skills, right, where the athlete puts their feet between their hands, dislocates their shoulders, and pops out at the top of the bar. And they want to be popping out to as close as handstand as they can get, right? And those deductions stack up so quick. Right, so while you're looking to make sure these athletes are catching the releases and where they're catching them, also make sure that every time you see their legs go between their hands and pop out, they're popping out on a handstand, like we saw.
Just like that. Yeah, those Adler type elements can be tricky to get right. Kind of a risk reward. You can do them well with good technique. They're highly valued. There's that Tkachev release, satisfying his requirement for the release element group. Quick routine, already getting ready for the dismount, full twist and double layout. and put it down. Good lead-off routine.
Let's go, Garrett. Come on now. Do you, Garrett, do you.
So Brandon, where should we expect scores to fall? What kind of general range do we see good, average, and exceptional high bar scores?
This is you, baby. This
Well, high bar is typically one of the lower scoring events, I would say, and so you're not going to see too many scores in that 14 or high 13 range. But if you can get up into the 13s on high bar, that's usually a indication of a good routine.
Come on now.
All right, and we got Daniel Garavich for the last time today, who has also been a busy young man. Oh, huge Yamawaki skill, that first release. It's not super hard to catch, of course, but getting the right flight on that without having a hip angle is very difficult, and he managed it very well. Tkachev next. Stalder, get that in bar element group. It looks like he's not going to opt for a jam. That was a cross there. He did a full turn, letting go of the bar, which is very spooky. Oh, there we go. And he finishes with a very nice stick on that full twisting double layout. We have ourselves a meet here, folks. Navy is trying to they're trying to put a fork in it. It is over. They want this meet done.
Yeah, that was a great finale to that routine. A little bit of an error on that quaff, as you mentioned. That angle also, the angles that the judges are looking for also apply to those types of skills as well. So that quaff was a bit low. The judges might, go back and forth about that, but otherwise a good
Angles
routine.
on those full releasing ones are actually now more generous, right? So
Yeah.
so he had a much wider range than you'll see for some of these jamming elements.
Yeah, so that one, for example, definitely a 3 for that angle. Big layout to Tkachev, that's a D element, so highly valued. He'll do it again in the straddle position. See, he's gianting out, swinging out straight arms. That's always good to see and what the judge is looking for. That angle was pretty flat, so potentially a big error on that part. Getting ready for the dismount. Another full twisting double layout. Put it to his feet, but he's going to want to take back that Adler or that jam. A little precarious on credit for that skill as well.
Yeah, you'd think that after doing so many jams, so many talk elements, that they're going to look, they're going to look and feel exactly the same every time, and that is just so not the case. It is crazy. You can do 10 jams, 10 talks, and every single one can feel different, even though you're not really changing the technique. And so dialing in on such a narrow range of error for these skills is very difficult, and obviously these athletes wouldn't be doing it if they wouldn't be competing these skills if they couldn't do it regularly in practice. But if you're ever wondering why it looks so hard, because it's simple, like the drop point and the release point to get back up to handstand, we're talking about millimeters here, like in the way the bar bounces, that make all the difference.
Yeah, it's definitely not easy, and even though it's an on the bar element, the bounce of the bar still matters. That was great.
That was a handstand. What else you got for us? Ooh, pike to Tkachev. A little bit arm bend on the catch, but he keeps the swing smooth. Gearing up for another one. Straddle to Tkachev. He's got an early tack. Gets a lot of flex on that bar. Stalder, also good handstand. Flying giant. Easy B. Quast, all right. A little low, but once again, you got more generous angles on that. It was still definitely worth it. C value. Dismount here. And the stick again. We've got a train going here. The midshipmen are ready to go home. They want the win. They want the win.
Yeah, that was a great routine. And, I think a big differentiator in the score is going to be that top half that he got right to handstand off the beginning of the routine. Made that skill worth it for sure.
At this point, Navy seems like they're trying to make a statement. Army, you might have won conference last year, but here in our house, in Halsey Field House, you will not win, not this season.
Here goes Jaden Blank for Army. Ooh, really unique Jaeger, but it looks like he might have hit his feet on the bar. And that can be up to a 5/10 deduction.
Is he
Talk half.
is he at risk for loss of credit for that heel hit?
Yeah, I'm not totally sure about that. Might depend on how, if it's considered a scrape, maybe a full hit. We'll see what the judges do with that. But that could potentially be a big swing because it seems like it's his only release element as he does the dismount. Another full twisting double layout, put to his feet.
Now, pike Jaeger is not common. I mean, Jaegers generally aren't very common in men's gymnastics, but in this past code change, they've increased the value of these front flipping and regrasping skills on high bar, these Jaeger elements. And that one specifically, Jaeger pike has been upgraded to a D. So that is as difficult as a Kovacs, allegedly, right? A double backflip over the bar and catch again. That is the same difficulty value you get for a stretch to Kachev. And so that's just seeing the meta in action, seeing these athletes learn and attempt these skills that have been buffed, boosted, and given more difficulty in the current gymnastics world.
Yeah, and it looks a little bit simpler than something like a Kovacs, but I think the barrier to entry may be a little bit quicker to get that type of element in the routine, but it doesn't mean it's any less difficult. I mean, the technique for that, as you can see, is really tricky to time.
Yeah, I hear you, but Kovacs is so much scarier than a Jaeger pike, man. I bet I could do a Jaeger pike right now. Not just that's an exaggeration. That was terrible at high bar. All of these athletes are way better than me, but this guy's cooking through his routine. Matthew Petros, once again, he's back on the bar with a vengeance. Look at the amplitude on that. Are you kidding me? You could fit a whole other athlete beneath him. He's flying up there.
Yeah, it's been great so far. Great angles too. That was excellent.
Yeah, that's the best cross angle we've seen so far. Speeding up here. Get that dismount. 3-6. Double. Oh, just the 1/10 backwards. That's a good hit. That's a good routine.
Yeah, I think that should be the highest score we've seen so far. We'll see what the judges do with that, but had big difficulty with the two Takamoto elements that were pretty well done with the angle, and then, yeah, big dismount, double.
I know, that was a great comeback as well from parallel bars, but he had the unfortunate hands down on that dismount. Not this time.
Yep, put it out of his mind and moved on, so that was a good way to bounce back. Last up is going to be Cash Johnston for Army. Wants to end their campaign on a high bar on a good note.
Let's go, Booty! You know it, baby!
2 scores in a piece. Army is ahead by 9/10.
You know it, Boot!
But overall, the gap is a bit larger than that, around 7.7.
You know it, Boot! This is you, baby, this is you!
Pardon me, it's less than that. It's around 7 points. I misspoke.
Yeah, there are pieces there. There are a lot of standout routines that we saw. I think some of the opportunities just got away from them, especially on parallel bars and a pommel horse. But this is going to be the last routine for Army on high bar.
It's also very early in the season, and we noted that Army won conference last season, right? And they did that with the second most difficulty in the conference, right? So this year they put effort into upgrading, and implementing those upgrades takes time and takes practice, right? And so they're very much still probably in the practicing these harder skills phase of their competition, right? And so this is just because Army might lose today does not mean that they are not still in contention to win the conference championship like they did last season.
Yep, it's a little bit of a development and a build-up throughout the season, and they're trying to lay the foundation by getting those difficult elements in there and getting practice competing those. Let's see what Cash Johnson can do.
13.55 for Matthew Petros.
Big time.
Let's go, Boot!
Nice and clean on those opening elements for Cash. Good pike to Kachev caught with good pressure on the bar. You see it pushing away and getting a smooth straight arm swing out. So those are done with good technique. Big dismount, double twisting double, small hop backwards. But that was a good routine to finish off the meet for Army.
All right. And we have one athlete left, Mr. Boone Washburn. And I'm going to try my best not to commentator's curse, because I swear we sabotaged an athlete last time we commentated, Brandon.
Yep.
But I am very excited for what he has got here for us. I mean, if he's swinging last for the team and a meet this big, he's got some stuff to show off, and I can't wait to see it.
Yeah, typically you want to put your highest score last, or the routine with the biggest impression. So we'll see what Mr. Boone can do here.
Every time I read his name, I'm like, wow, that's such a good name. I'm jealous.
Come on now! All you, baby!
Nice, Superman.
Come on, Boone! Up!
Oh, that's an error. So that will be a full fall. He went for that Takamoto element we've been talking about, trying to get that full 5/10s for the in-bar element group. And while he was very close to handstand, unfortunately, he came up just shy on the wrong side of the bar. And so he will not receive credit for that, and he will incur a fall, as well as any form deductions that he took while attempting the skill, right? So that leg separation, the arm bend, the knee bends, and that'll stack up very quickly.
Yeah, I mean, he was going for the handstand, but as we mentioned, it's kind of a high risk, high reward kind of skill. We'll see if he does it again to try and get credit.
I wouldn't be surprised if he shot it over just a little bit to make sure he got through the rest of this. Yeah, there it is. So that's still credit, not a handstand, but it was still fine angle. Lots of gymnastics left here. Ooh, Strava Tkachev definitely closer than he intended to catch it. And that's another wrong way deduction. So this is going a little bit rougher than I'm sure he had planned for, but one arm giant, the quast element. Alright, just the dismount left. Put it down, please. Double, and it's on his feet. He'll be disappointed. I'm sure he's hit that out of the park more than 100 times over in practice, and it's always a little frustrating when that doesn't show in the competition. But he wouldn't be on lineup, and he wouldn't be in the anchor spot if he wasn't capable of doing that. So that's a goldfish memory moment. Bad routines happen. You just take it, you move on, and you work harder to make sure it doesn't happen as often. That being said, I'm still very, very confident that Navy has secured the win for today.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to take away the lead that they built throughout the other 5 events. But, in terms of the average score and the high score that they're going to see, definitely room for improvement. But as we mentioned, it's early in the season, so getting those elements in early is the name of the game.
So that 297.75 you see to Army's 303.0, so the flat is, there we go, now updated, and Boone Washburn scores in at a 10.45. 308.2 for Navy today. Slightly
Yep, that's
below
a
their
good
season
score.
high. All right, Brandon, and one last time, can you take us through the high bar rankings?
Yeah, so it looks like, as we mentioned, Matthew Petros, excellent routine, ran away with the event title today, 13.55 from a 4.7. That difficulty is the highest that we saw today, and the execution was excellent. And then we got Cash Johnson in second place with 13.15. Great finish to the meet for Army. And then third place looks like we got a 12.9 from a 14.0 from Jonas Soltz from Navy.
With Matthew Petros getting that event title, that does make it dead even for event title wins today. So that's kind of fun, just seeing that these teams are so dead even, that clearly their best are very, very comparable across events. special shout out to Cash Johnson, who seemed to really excel with these E-scores today.
Yeah, he's a solid, reliable competitor across all of his events.
Looking at floor, we have Benjamin Thurlow Lamb from Navy with a 13.75 for that event title. So that first one to Navy.
Yeah, Navy ran away with the floor rotation. All four top four scorers sweep. So that's a big hole that Army's going to want to pay attention to as they move on to the next competition throughout the season and try and improve on that ranking.
Then you get the
Pommel
almost reverse. Where 1, 2, and 4 are all Army, and one Navy guy breaks in with Cody.
Yeah, it looks like we got Noah Duran winning the pommel horse, 13.5, and then 13.4 from Jake. And then Cody Takunaga from Navy getting a 13.35 for that third position.
And then we flip back again, where of the first 4 spots, 3 of them are taken by midshipmen. Julian Galvez, of course, getting the win on rings with a 12.8. Carter Beck of Army in second with a 12.7, who won the tiebreaker over Garrett Lawless, also a 12.7, but from Navy. And then we see Brian Solomon in fourth, of course. But this is really just showing that this was a battle of whose strong events were stronger today, as we're seeing that, on Navy strong events there, it's essentially, sweeping the board, and Army is doing the same on their stronger events.
Yeah, it's fun to see these two teams going back and forth and trying to play to their strengths. I feel like they got an even matchup in terms of like which events they got strong competitors on. For vault, Jaden Blank stomped that cause full, stuck it with 13.85, and that earns him the event title over Jonas Soltz and Felipe Junqueira.
Not to beat that dead horse, but of course, other than the unfortunate misstep with Jacob Brenner, Army is 3 of the top 4 spots on vault. So once again, using their strong event to try and take over and cover that ground they lost to Navy on rings and on floor. Parallel bars, in first place we had Jaden Blank, who had that very nice stick on his dismount as well, fellow double front dismount guy. In second place, Danilo from Navy also stuck his dismount, 12.85, so just a tenth behind, and half a tenth behind him is his teammate Brian Solomon, the all-arounder we will also be seeing at the Winter Championships this year on February 21st.
And high bar, Matthew Petros had an excellent routine. He was a standout in terms of difficulty, and he also executed it very well. 13.55 gets him the win on high bar, ahead of Cash Johnson, who had a very clean set and a clean day all across the board today as well, 13.15 second place. And then Jonas Soltz pulling in third with a 12.9. Looks like nobody competed all around today, but as you mentioned, Brian Solomon is probably resting, getting ready for Winter Cup.
Yep, that would be my guess as well. All right, well, that is today's competition. As we saw, the Navy midshipmen were able to defeat the Army Black Knights with a score of 308.2 to Army's 303 flat. It has been my pleasure commentating for you today. My name is Christian Marsh.
And I'm Brandon Briones.
Thank you so much, and have a good weekend.